everybody, this is the Wikstrand. So, was 2022 a good movie year? Yes, it was. And 12 months ago I posted a video where I anticipated which was going to be the 15 greatest movies of 2022. And this is my way of, looking back and see how correct I was. So this is kind of a retrospective look back at this movie year, and also a little bit of, seeing how good I am at predicting stuff. This is 2022, a retrospective look, if you will. Number 15, Nightmare Alley. Okay, I haven't seen the original yet, but with an all-star cast, I thought this was going to be an absolutely fantastic movie. But the problem this movie has was that it basically had a bad opening and it had a not very good ending, but the middle of it was so fucking good that I was starting to smoke the hopium and think, Jesus Christ, they're building to something monumental here. And the chemistry between Kate Blanchett and Bradley Cooper was so good. And then they did this very flat and very bad finish to the whole thing, which left me a little bit, that was not what I wanted. It makes sense for the character, I guess, but this was not exactly what I was signing up for, but I still thought it was a fantastic movie from a visual standpoint. It looked great, it had some great acting, and it just needed that something else. I just thought that we were gearing up for something that was so much better than what we got. Number 14, Bullet Train. Success! You can see that the guy who directed this also directed Deadpool 2, because this is a bonkersly fun, complicated / uncomplicated action movie with Brad Pitt, on a train together with a bunch of assassins, and there's a lot of over-the-top action. It was a lot of over-the-top humor, a lot of colorful characters. I thought this movie was absolutely great. Number 13, The Gray Man. Success! I think this movie was so much fun, and you can really see how much Chris Evans loves to play this villain. He loves every second of him being on screen, and I think that this is one of these cases where they actually found a good gig for Ryan Gosling. These guys and their two-man war was a lot of fun to see. It was an intense, entertaining and spectacular action movie. The only thing I didn't like was the introduction of the kid, but you had to get, this guy a heart or whatever he needed. That is not what Ryan Gosling needs. He needs to be a reclusive, emotionally disconnected dude who just wants to kick somebody's ass and looks slightly interested while he's doing it. The movie was a lot of fun, and it has potential of, creating a new fun little movie series of itself. So maybe we'll see that. I like this movie a lot. Number 12, Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery. Success! It's not quite as good as the first one. It focuses a little bit too much on the humor rather than the mystery and the murder than its predecessor. But it was still a very entertaining, extremely nicely shot and a fun mystery. And I hope that we're getting, another Knives Out movie every second year or so that we can have a entertaining murder mystery with colorful characters every 2 years or so. I'm all for it. I think this movie was a lot of fun. Number 11, Decision to Leave. Success. This movie's place on this list was just because Park Chan-wook had directed this one, and he never directs anything that is, normal or ordinary. And this movie was so different from anything I've ever seen. Is it as good as Handmaiden? Yes. Is it as good as Oldboy? Yes. But this movie is so different from that. It basically takes the concept of the film noir and the obsessed cop and the femme fatale and turns everything on its head. This movie, I just saw it a couple of days ago, and I still haven't really come to conclusion in exactly how good it is. As it is right now, it is one of my top 10 movies of the year, but come back in a couple of months and it might have changed. This might actually be one of my top 5 best movies of the year, because it was so unique. It had such a fantastic ending, and it was so cleverly done, and you couldn't figure out what is going to happen over the next 10 minutes. It was absolutely impossible. Great movie. Strongly recommended. Number 10, The Batman. Success. Is it too long? Yes. Is it too dark? Maybe. Is it the greatest representation of what Batman should have been in a decade? Oh, you better believe it is. Robert Pattinson was a pretty okay Batman, and I love the fact that this is something that, you know, affects Gotham City. We don't have to travel around the world with multiple other characters and stuff like that. It is Batman being the greatest detective and trying to stop the Riddler. I loved the, you know, mind games and all that stuff. That was so cool. They could have cut out half an hour of it and it would have been even better, but still, this was one hell of a movie, and it was absolutely the best superhero movie that was released during 2022. The only thing that works against this movie is the fact that you know, all the Zack Snyder movies that has come out over recent years have made me felt a little bit, you know, overstuffed with Batman. Too many movies have come out. We have seen this character too many times played by different people. I think that Batman should be his standalone thing, and it should not be tied into anything that has to do with, you know, the DC or anything like that. But I think this movie was absolutely great. The car chase was my absolute high point of this one. This was a lot of fun, even though it could have been shorter and maybe it didn't have to be that dark. But I don't know. Number 9, The Wild Bunch. Didn't come out. I don't know if this movie is cancelled, I don't know if it is just delayed, if it's gonna come out 2024 or something like that, or if this is just stone dead. I don't know, but as Loki said, yes, very sad. Anyway, number 8, Crimes of the Future. Okay, David Cronenberg, you sick fuck. This is a super weird, mega disgusting movie about, I think it is, you know, the future where, you know, humans are growing, you know, new limbs and stuff like that, and, you know, people operate them out, and we have performance artists who are doing, you know, performance things for audience while they're operating on each other. It's really icky, it's really weird, and it doesn't look like anything I've ever seen. I didn't think it was quite as good as other body horror movies that Cronenberg has done. Not as good as The Fly or Videodrome or Existence, but it was unique. I'm giving it that. You had no idea what's gonna happen in this movie. I think it was pretty good, but I also think it was very weird. Number 7, Ambulance. Okay, I'm gonna say it, I love Michael Bay. I think he's so much fun when he's allowed to do his big over-the-top action movies and stuff like that. I love the fact that he's not making another Transformers movie, but this is more of a classical, you know, action movie, even though it is more tightly shot, and it isn't as big and boisterous as movies like Bad Boys 2 or The Rock or something like that, but it was a lot of fun. I actually think that this movie had a lot of things working in its favor. I love the fact that, you know, we're just inside of this ambulance for almost the entire movie. I love the fact that it is so intense. I love the fact that the action sequences look more raw and real than what they usually look in the Michael Bay movies, but they still had the impressive visual presentation of them. I think this movie was quite good, actually. Number 6, The Northman. Success. I loved this movie. This was like a Manowar song that has come to life. And this is basically Hamlet with Vikings in Iceland. I absolutely love the violence, I love the brutality of this movie, I love how it was shot, I love the out there atmosphere of this movie. It's murky, it's bloody, it's violent, it's brutal. It is kind of ridiculous. I know that some people really hated this movie, but to me it was almost perfect. Damn you, Alexander Skarsgård's arm though. If you know, you know. I love this movie, and I really hope that we're allowed to see more fun, brutal Viking movies after this. I think this movie was absolutely excellent, both from a acting point of view and a visual point of view. This movie fucking rocks. Number 5. The Kingsman. Failure. Technically this movie isn't bad, it's just not as good as the two first Kingsman movies. I love the concept that this was going to take place during World War I, but it never really played that big of a role in the whole thing, and we had not very interesting villains. We had some fun action sequences and we had some great actors in this one, but I don't know, this felt a little bit underwhelming. It isn't a bad movie, it was just a little bit, it was fine. Number 4, Avatar: The Way of Water. Success. The best thing that this movie did was, when I sat down to watch this movie, I didn't want a sequel to Avatar. I thought that this movie was completely fine as it was. We didn't need a sequel. When this movie was over, I said, I cannot wait until the next movie. James Cameron somehow persuaded me to wanting more Avatar movies. That is the sole existence of this movie. It reintroduced us to the universe and it made me want to see more of Pandora. And it should also be said that Pandora is the fictional universe where I would most want to, live for real, because it is such a fantastic visual experience with the Avatar movies. It is not as good as the first one. I still think the first one is very, very good. The characters are still flatter than a plate full of piss, but it doesn't matter because the movie looks so good and all the fantastic small little details. Despite this movie being over 3 hours long, it kind of pulls off the Herculean effort of actually being able to fill those 3 hours in a good way. They still could have cut some minor things, but I still didn't think that this runtime was as bloated as, for instance, The Batman. I still say this, the characters are still not that interesting, but I'm very interested to see where we're going. I was actually quite amazed on how much I actually cared in the end. Number 3, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Failure. The song of 2022 when it comes to the Marvel Cinematic Universe has been basically the following. When I come out of the cinema, I am all of, yay, this movie was great! And then I say, well, except that thing, and 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 that thing. God damn it! The Marvel movies has basically gone from good to fantastic to okay to pretty good. And this was a pretty good movie, but this was my third most anticipated movie of 2022. And it was just a pretty good movie. I didn't care too much for the characters. The idea of the multiverse thing was fun, but they didn't utilize it. They introduced a slew of new characters and then just move them away, and then we had an underwhelming finale with an underwhelming and totally uninteresting villain, and then the movie ended with a post-credit sequence that made me go, ooh! Then remembering, yeah, it's not gonna be as good as I hope it will be. I'm just not that excited anymore for, the Marvel movies. I think this movie could have been so much better than it was. But it wasn't a bad movie. It was just not as good as I hoped for, and definitely not as good as the first movie. Number 2, Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning didn't come out. So we're gonna have to wait until 2023 until we finally get to see what the hell Tom Cruise and his cohorts of lunatics have been working on. I think it's going to be fantastic, but we were not able to see it during 2022. Before we go into number 1, 3 movies I have to mention that I think was so fucking good that came out of absolutely nowhere and absolutely killed it. Was some of my favorite movies of this year. I had no idea at the start of the year that they were going to come. The Menu, absolutely fantastic. Go and see it. RRR, the greatest action movie I've seen in years. And Everything Everywhere All at Once. This is how you do a multiverse movie, Doctor Strange. Watch and fucking learn. And number 1, Thor: Love and Thunder. Failure. This movie took away a lot of the things I loved about Thor Ragnarok, added a couple of things I didn't want, to be there, used the same type of jokes as before, but they were not as good and I have already seen them. It felt like a rehash of Ragnarok, and it's actually the least good movie that Taika Waititi has ever made. It was the same case with Doctor Strange, not a bad movie, but it was just a bit underwhelming, and it was not as much fun, and the visual was not as appealing, and the villain was very boring, and the villain's arc was even more boring, and the third act was just it happened. But I love the sequence in Olympus where they rip all the clothes of Thor and at least 4 women fainted. That was a lot of fun, and the entire thing of the pompous thing with Russell Crowe and his thing, and then they killed him, and I said, yay, that was fun! And then he shows up in a post-credit sequence, so he wasn't dead at all. And so on and so on and so on. And I will say this, I don't have a vendetta against Natalie Portman, but Jesus Christ, she was a killjoy in this movie. She tried to be witty and funny, but she can't, that's not her thing. And also, I think one of the reasons why I loved Thor Ragnarok so much was the fact that we didn't need to have that boring ass love story that I cared absolutely nothing for. And the fact is that this was front and center of this movie was a bit... This was my biggest disappointment of 2022. It was not at all a bad movie. I gave this movie, I think, 66 points or something like that. But I thought it was going to get like 95 or something like that. I thought it was going to be one of my favorite movies of the year, and it just wasn't. Not even playing Rainbow in the Dark over the fantastic end credits couldn't save this movie. Then I just thought, you're just trying to sucker up to me, aren't you? So let's see what 2023 will hold for us. Maybe it will be better, maybe it will be worse, but the future will have the answer for us. So we'll see you next time for so and so reviewing, well, such and such. Thank you for watching, thank you very much.